Hello and welcome to the recording from our first Women Lead interviews hosted by me, Angela Clark. Our first guest was H. Michelle Johnson, a radio host and award-winning author. Please sit back and enjoy the discussion. Welcome to the Women Lead, okay? Now, people may be asking, well, what's this about? What is Women Lead? For a long time, I have been impressed by certainly the number of leaders that I've met on my journey. It feels like a long journey. I've been impressed by so many people. And we keep, when we ask for who, if we have, what role models do we have and what influential people and what people are there to empower and inspire? I have met loads of them on my journey. I really have. And I really, I give God thanks for that because it has kind of enhanced my journey. And now as a leader myself, it's important for me that, one, I talk about it, we share, we empower and inspire each other as women. So that was really the reason why I chose to start this Women Lead series. But more importantly, it was about, for me, it was about leaving a legacy behind because, we're going to be recording this series, as it were. And I hope that those of you who are here don't mind that. We just want to record and capture because these are really kind of precious nuggets that we're going to learn and hear, from each other about our journey, about, how we've got to where we've got to, because we didn't just arrive here. There's a journey that goes with it. And we're hoping that, in talking about our stories and talking about how we've got to where we've got to, it can empower and inspire someone else to get, step on that journey of leadership, because you're needed. As women, we are, I tell you, close to God, we are cornerstones as well. We lift up so many things. We are the linchpins for so many things. We juggle so many things. And as we get into areas of influence, let me say, it's important, certainly for me, that along the way, I don't just kind of step on people as I go up that ladder or where I need to get to, that I bring as many people along with me as possible, because that's the only way that we're going to impact. That's the only way that we're going to effect change. That's the only way that we're going to help each other, really, because it's not about just about me. It's about us. It is about we, and it's how we get to where we're going. So tonight it is the first, and it will only be one per month. Not that there are so many women, this is about women. And if I can remind you again, please to mute your mics, because again, it's going to be a bit off-putting. So I'm just asking if you could do that. I'd appreciate it. I'm not even going to go with ground rules as such. You know that this is a conversation. You will have a chance, as I said, if you put in the chat any comments that you want to make, they will be picked up. So, and as I said, my colleagues who are behind the scenes will be helping to make sure that, certainly that you get your chance to have your say. So I suppose without further ado, I'm going to say it gives me great pleasure, and it really does, to introduce my first guest to you. My first guest that really the first of many, yes, but this guest who I'm going to introduce, who you can see beside me, Michelle, and I will say Michelle Johnson, but I've come to know her as H. Michelle Johnson, and I'm going to ask her about that H as well, but I call her Michelle. And Michelle is, she's a number of things, and I've experienced her in different ways. I've experienced her working for the NHS. I've experienced her as a radio host. I've experienced her as a speaker in conferences. I've experienced her internationally, working with various groups across the country, doing some really phenomenal work. So, as I said, it's about sharing our stories that inspires and encourages us. And I'm hoping that, in the time that we've got together this evening, that you will be empowered, you will be inspired just by hearing about certainly Michelle's journey today. And throughout the series, you'll probably hear bits about my journey too, which has been eventful. I want you to know, has been really eventful. And I've got a cousin. I've got a cousin. Her name is Amanda. Amanda Brown Bennett. In fact, let me say her title, Dr. Amanda Brown Bennett. And she has, let me say, she has helped me to find my voice. Let me say that. And because for a long time, a number of years, yeah, I would work behind the scenes. I would help people. I would do so many things, but you would never actually hear me speak like this in this kind of arena. And please do not mistake. I don't think I'm Oprah. I don't think I'm Trisha. I don't think I'm anyone like that. And that's not what this is about. This isn't a show. This is about me wanting to make a difference, because that's what I want to do. I want to make a difference. I want to enhance other people's lives. And I feel that the way to do that is to share, is to share, is to speak, is to share our experiences as women. We all have a journey, and my journey will be different to yours. We will all have our different journeys, but how we get to where we get to, and that fight, and and the disappointments, and the many of us on this line can testify to the disappointments that we've had in life, that that even some of us may not be where we want to be, but let me tell you, there is hope. And you need to understand that there is always hope. And as long as you have your faith, and you have that faith inside, and that you are genuine and authentic, because those things are so important on your journey. I'm not sitting here as anybody fantastic, but I'm sitting here because I know that I have a God-given purpose to do what I'm doing. And so it's not about a show. It's not about me thinking that I'm anything that I'm not, but it's me kind of really wanting to connect with you and say, let me tell you, we are, yes, in the midst of a pandemic. We've been through a terrible year. We've been through lots of disappointments, lots of heartache. We've been through an experience that, we don't even know, but for the grace of God, how we are going to get through, but we're here, and the fact that we are here, we need to celebrate. We need to celebrate somehow. And I don't want to wallow in self-pity. I don't want to be in doom and gloom. I want to be a light. I want to, show that in every difficult circumstance, there is hope. There is a positive side, and my mum used to say to me, that there is always a positive in a negative situation. And I'm not joking. Through my life, I have proved that to be so. In every disappointment, I have had to find that positive out of it, and even in situations of death, even in situations of sickness, in situations of poverty, in situations of, desolation, where you feel depressed and all the rest of it, there is always a reason why we find ourselves in the situations that we do. And it's not by chance. There is a reason for it. Because when you get to the other side of that journey, when you get, when you reach that light that has been placed there for you, you will have a testimony like no other, because your testimony will be unique to you. So without any further ado, I can't believe I've already spoken for nearly 10 minutes, really, and it's not even about me today. I want to, without any further ado, really, I know I don't want us to unmute, but really, if you can just show with a clap of welcome to H. Michelle Johnson. And I just want to clap to you today. And I want to really say thank you. Thank you for being my first guest. And you're going to have to unmute if you're going to speak to me today. So I'm going to invite you to unmute if you can. And I want to say, Michelle, welcome. Welcome.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so very, very much, Angela, for that very warm and lovely welcome, and for all of the things that you said so far. Yes, this is definitely a legitimate platform that you're creating here, a much needed platform. My experience and engagement within the NHS, not just locally, but nationally, what I'm hearing a lot from our Black and Asian and minority ethnic folk is that we want to hear more of our own stories. And so what you're doing here is certainly going to add value to that, add value to what's already out there. People want to hear more about our individual journeys, because as you said, it's all about, it kind of gives people permission. Me hearing other people's stories gives me permission, gave me permission when I started my journey. I still find something new, sometimes when a new interesting woman appears on the horizon and she does something or says something that gives me permission in an area of life where I was still feeling a little bit guarded over, and it liberates me to, yes, to press ahead in that area. So definitely well done for starting this series. And it's my pleasure and honor to be your first one and to be part of this conversation. And I certainly will be tuning in for the ones to come as well.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Thank you. And for everyone, as I said, we're having a conversation. This is a relaxed environment. So I want you to make yourself comfortable. I want you to make sure that you get a drink or whatever. If you feel that you need to take comfort, are you ready to? I just want you to, just feel relaxed, because there's no airs and graces here. This is us, this is about us having a conversation. So feel comfortable. As I said, if you have something to say, please feel free to put it in the chat. Don't hesitate. If there's something if there's something you want to ask Michelle as well, from anything that you've heard, any questions that you have, feel free to put it in the question and answers, either direct message, or you can, as I say, just put it to everyone, and then we can all see what people are asking. That's entirely up to you. Thank you so much, Elaine. You know what? I salute you all. There are kind of over 40 of you on here, and I just feel really humbled by that. I really feel humbled by it. I will say that, as we know, as we have experiences of Zoom, we realize that when it comes to this time of an evening, everybody is online. Yeah. So if we freeze or if we stop, don't worry. We'll just keep going, and we'll try and improvise and do what we do. Because what I've learned to, to be prepared for every kind of eventuality. So please, if, just bear with us. If it sticks or anything like that, we will just get back to it. Or if there's anything that you want us to repeat, then please feel free to just let us know. I know that some of my church brethren are at prayer meeting today. I've kind of picked the wrong day. So I've said to them that when the prayer finishes, please feel free to join, because I don't want you to miss out. It's, this is something that is for all of us. It's not just for me. And as I said, I'm not here doing it because I'm paid or that I've got anything to gain from it, apart from being empowered and inspired just like you. So, Michelle, my first question is going to be, you're from Trinidad.
I am.
Yeah.
Born and raised.
Born and raised in Trinidad. So can you just explain to us, or tell us how you came to be in the UK?
Yes, okay. So I was born in Trinidad in a little town called Arima, and I actually left Trinidad when I was 15 years old. It was a kind of a punishment for me. My mom sent me to boarding school in Canada. And I say it's a sort of punishment because my mom was very, very, very strict. She was a school teacher, and we were forbidden to have boyfriends. Oh, wow. And I had a boyfriend, and she found out. And it wasn't a serious boyfriend. It's just a boy. But my mom just went into meltdown with that and felt, oh, I've got to get her out of this country. And so she had sisters living in Toronto, and I had cousins attending this boarding school in Oshawa, which is a city outside east of Toronto. And so I was shipped off to Canada at 15 and lived there in that school for 2 years, did my A-levels. Then I started at UFT. I did some work as well. And so I lived in Canada for 6 years. Came over to the UK at 21, having applied to do nursing here in a nursing school at King's College Hospital, in fact. So that was what brought me over here, this opportunity to actually to train as a nurse in England.
Yeah. So that means you're away from your mum all that time?
All that time. And in fact, interestingly, for the first 9 years of my life, I lived with my grandparents as well. So I do let mom, I do remind her sometimes that I've only lived with her 6 years of my life,
Wow.
Yeah. And so she thinks I'm too independent, but that's when I say, well, what can I say? I had to, from a very young age, learn that independence. So, yeah.
So have you got siblings?
don't know if you're from.
You see
Sorry?
what I mean?
Yes, I do have siblings. I've got two younger sisters, Stacy and Denisha, and they both live over here now as well. And I have an older brother by my dad who lives in Trinidad, has lived in Trinidad all his life. And I've got nieces and nephews from my brother.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I know that one of your sisters, I remember there was a picture of you with one of your sisters collecting an award from the, is it from the Queen?
Oh, yes, that's right. So my sister Stacy, the one right after me, she got an MBE 2 years ago now, I think it is. Yes. So we all, mom and dad, we flew them over, and the Johnson family of 5 went up to Buckingham Palace, and it was quite an adventure actually. And it was a wonderful experience. I'd never been inside Buckingham Palace before. It was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. We weren't in there for long. It was just an hour ceremony. And in fact, about 150 or so people received awards and prizes from it was Charles who officiated that day.
Wow.
The thing that struck me was how short he is. I actually thought he was a towering figure, but in fact, he's just an inch or two taller than I am. And I'm 5'6". So I was struck by how actually not tall he is. But it was a very organized affair, and it was just wonderful to go there and support my sister. So she got her MBE for services to inclusion, I think, if I remember correctly. Yes, yeah.
So you kind of follow similar footsteps.
Interestingly, yes, she and I. So she came over even before I did, really, to do nursing here. And so we just grew up through the ranks in the NHS, really. She's now an academic at Nottingham. Sorry. You know, it is an empty stomach, and I am sipping wine. Sorry about that. So I'll try not to sip too much of it. But so she's an associate prof at Nottingham, and my younger sister, Denisha, is associate prof at De Montfort in Leicester. And they both live together in Nottingham. Yes.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. So, and your
brother, my regret, I suppose. And my brother, well, he's kind of, even though he's just a few years older than me, he retired at 50. So he lived in Trinidad. And I think it was a time when, because he started working from so young, he had like 30 odd years under his belt, and he could retire early with a good financial package. So he took that and ran. Oh, and wow. Now he's doing many other things with himself. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So there are lots of things that we could talk about, but I'm going to start by asking you, how did you get into radio presenting?
Yeah. So, you know, it's about having these dreams as a child or a young person. And media was always something in my heart and mind to get into, whether it's TV or radio. Mm-hmm. And I did like TV presenting courses in back in the day while I was doing nursing here. But then I had a friend who was on radio, and I used to go and just help him produce his programs, basically, and just really loved radio. I just loved the whole radio DJ thing. I love, the music, the desk, the interviewing people. I just find radio really quite cool for some reason. And so it was a long-standing ambition and dream, and as is writing. So writing was always a part of me, even in childhood. And so by the time I published my first book in 2016, I learned that actually I can't only be a writer, I have to become a marketer of my book as well. And I thought, okay, so is this an opportunity to do some radio? And I met someone, his name has escaped me now, but he has a Christian radio station called Praise in Radio. And that was put out from Alpha and Omega Church in Kingsbury. And his name will come back to me. So I had a conversation with him, and I said, I've always wanted to do radio. Do you think I could possibly maybe have a go? But I can't do it live. So he allowed me to do pre-recorded programs, which is why when I invited you, I invited you into the office space where I worked, didn't I? And I used my phone actually just to record you. So that meant for me that I had a whole lot of extra work to do and learn in terms of editing and getting quality sound and things like that, because I was pre-recording my own shows and I had to do it all. So we had to download all these different programs and packages to do the editing and all sorts of things. So I learned a lot about recording and audio recording and radio by doing that, really. And then I felt bold enough and to graduate into live radio, and an opportunity came on, I forget the FM now. Oh, I'm so very, very sorry. But it's based in Harlesden area. And I started a program there called Need to Know. So my first program on praise and radio was Women 101. And I had you there. And really that program was a talk show, doing interviews similar to this one, not just with women, but men as well, people doing interesting things with their lives and really in ways that affect women as well. So that was the other part of it. And so then I went on to live radio and started a program called Need to Know, just talking about anything affecting the Black community and having various people on there talking about what they were doing. I remember having really fantastic guests on there as well, like Stephen Akinsanya. So I don't know if you know Stephen, but he is a barrister and he does a lot of defense work for a lot of our young men who find themselves in the predicament of knife crime and things like that. So he was a really great person to have on there. Jasmine Dale, who launched something called Brent Factor, which was modeled after the X Factor to include young people, again combating this whole knife crime culture and so on.
Yeah, I know Jasmine.
And a number of other, you know Jasmine.
I do.
And then of course Lyndon Wassart, my dear pal, the Inspired Diabetic. So quite a number of people I was attracting onto that program actually. And then Slam Radio contacted me to say they had a slot and would I defect? And I did, only because there were so many technical difficulties really on this other station. Clearly, I've repressed the memory there. I'm really struggling to get the name of that station now. So really, so it's been 5-6 years of radio and these 3 stations that I've been on. But I started out pre-recording and then I went live. And in fact, I love it. I am in my happy space when I am live on radio, talking to people, doing exactly what you're doing now, really, just talking to people about what they're doing, who they are, in a way that entertains the listeners and inspires people to be their best selves. Yeah.
I mean, that is definitely something, sorry about the sound, that is definitely something that's important to you, inspiring other people.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that's always struck me with you.
Yeah.
And we've never actually really spoken about faith, have we?
About faith?
Yeah, we've never really had a conversation about faith, but we both know that we are women of faith. We are women of faith. I am a born again. We've never had that discussion. Spirit-filled Christian, yes. Yeah, definitely. And did that begin as a child or?
Yes, I grew up in a church family very much, and my grandfather and grandmother, they were Anglicans, so that's Church of England in Trinidad. But my uncle Garnet, their son, kind of broke away from that. So the vicar, a Trinidadian vicar in that church, became born again. Can you imagine?
Okay.
And became charismatic and left the Anglican church and started a Pentecostal church. And my uncles and aunts followed him. So that actually caused a massive rift in our family, because our grandparents were very much traditionalist, and so it's possible back in those times, and still today, I still feel that there are lots of priests and vicars out there who are not born again, okay? Because it's a set of rules and it's a perspective and an outlook for them. It's about doing good. As opposed to I've had an encounter with Jesus Christ who died for me necessarily, right? So anyway, his name was Andrew Primus, Pastor Primus, and he became born again and left. And my uncle and aunts followed him, and my grandparents were in a state. And in fact, some of that stress and pressure probably contributed to my grandfather's death. He had diabetes. I mean, there were other issues as well. But I remember it being a time of real tension and conflict. I was a child growing up in my grandparents' house, and that thing created such an atmosphere in the family. I've just never forgotten it. And so I've always had a sense of Christ. I had an experience when I was prayed for as a child as well, where I just really felt the Holy Spirit. I was really ill with chicken pox, and I remember Andrew Primus and my uncle Garnet laying hands on me in the church, and I'd never experienced anything like that before. I just felt this weight and this heat of this presence. And I just started to cry as a child, and just crying before God. And I know now that that was the Holy Spirit. But I accepted Christ into my life really solidly and finally at 27. So I was churching quite a bit in my young life. The school that I was sent to in Canada was a Christian school as well, and it was compulsory. You had to attend service. And so church has always been in my reach, but I made that personal commitment at 27. And my mother's a pastor.
Okay.
My uncle's a pastor. I've got an aunt who's a pastor. Yeah, so that's the faith journey. It was always a thing in our family. We were a church family, definitely. But I made that commitment, and then a few years later, not very long afterwards, really, that I was filled with the Spirit at Robert's Lane meeting. I used to go to Kensington Temple.
Okay.
KT in Notting Hill Gate. For many years, really. Many years I went to KT.
That's why you said Notting Hill instead of Nottingham.
Probably. Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're gonna look at some pictures of your life in a while, and we're gonna ask you to kind of go through it with us. But I want to ask you, what inspired you to write your book?
Yeah. So again,
the first book, let me say.
The first book, yes. So writing, I've always written from my childhood. I used to write a lot, poems and songs and all sorts of things, short stories. It's always been a thing. And when I went to school, my English teachers always noted that ability as well. And I remember Betty Bayer, my English teacher at Kingsway College in Oshawa, said to me one day after returning a piece that I'd written that, Michelle, when you become a famous author, make sure and tell everybody I was your English teacher. So that, again, was kind of giving me a permission, because even in my family situation, nobody took that writing seriously. Yeah? My mother was like, you can't make money off of that, whatever. You've got to get a career, you've got to get a job, you've got to have a profession, and so on. And so nobody took the writing seriously, but it was something that I just did quite naturally. So to hear my teacher actually make a statement like that was really a game changer for me. I started to take my own writing seriously. So I have written an anthology of short stories as well. Are we still there?
Yeah, we're still
here. I don't know what's happening.
Right, okay. Right, we're just getting your pictures ready.
Yeah. So it was during my GCSEs, my aunt, who used to work in a bank, used to take me into her office so that I can study. And she would set me up in their boardroom, basically, and so that I can study. But what she would also do is put in tapes, those video tapes of speakers. So John C. Maxwell, Les Brown, Miles Monroe. So as a 15-year-old girl preparing for GCSEs, I had those motivational speakers that I was listening to, right? My aunt used to just, for whatever reason, say, listen to this before you study. And I just got captivated with this whole idea of personal development from that age. So, and then I continued to read and study in the area. So this book that I have written is a book on personal development. It's called Do Great Exploits, Saying Yes to Your Dreams When It's Easier to Say No, because it's about that motivation. It's about that encouraging people to release their best selves, to identify purpose, to pursue purpose, to know what their gifts and talents are, to release their potential, to recognize that it's not always easy to achieve your dreams, to achieve your goals, but these are the things you need to be doing in order to achieve them, and it is possible to do so. So I was immersed in that kind of teaching for a long time and reading about it all the time through John C. Maxwell books, through the other person that I really loved is Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I've got several of his titles which I've read, Principle-Centered Leadership, First Things First in particular. So it's all about development, personal development. And so that's what this book is. It's a self-help book on personal development, how to be your best self, how to release the talents, gifts, and abilities God has given you based on the purpose, how to identify that purpose as well, and then live it out so that you complete your assignment here on earth. So that's the story of this first book. The thing is, before I wrote the book, I also did a lot of courses around feature writing and the like, and did manage to get myself published in magazines every now and again when I wrote an article. So, and then I just decided, look, I've always wanted to write a book. Why don't I just do it? At the time, I was working in Kingston, but living in Kingsbury. And so it was a 2-hour commute one way. But fortunately, because I was going in the opposite direction to the traffic, I always got a seat. So I sat from Burnt Oak to Waterloo Station, and then Waterloo Station to Surbiton. And so I thought, to sustain this, to do this job, I need to give myself a project. I can't sit here for the 2 hours because it would just drive me crazy. So in fact, I just brought my iPad onto the trains with me, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And then on the way back, I would stop at Waterloo and go into South Bank Festival Hall, South Bank Centre, or National Theatre, because there's lots of spaces there where you can just sit and do whatever you like. And so I would just take my iPad there after work, write until about 8 or so in the evening, 8 o'clock, and then head back home, and then literally just sleep. So I managed to write that book very quickly because I just used that time in that way. And so, yeah, Do Great Exploits was birthed in that way.
Yeah, I think the thing that drew me to the book was when it had Do Great Exploits, and then at the bottom it said saying yes to God's call when it's easier to say no. And I know that there are many of us on the platform today who can testify to that. Saying yes is not always easy. It's easier to say no, but when you say yes, you have to take on board what comes with it.
That's right. That's right. So it's not easy necessarily to fulfill your dreams or your goals, or even the purpose that God has for you. And I suppose I could use my writing as an example, because for many years, I suppose as a writer, I think most writers go through that. You are a very harsh critic of what you write. And so I used to start projects and then abandon them because I was just convinced they were just not good enough. But it's just about learning how to overcome the obstacles and the barriers to you actually achieving the goal that you want to achieve. It's easy to give up because it's hard, but the issue is you shouldn't give up because it is worth it. And actually, you're completing your purpose, or you walking in purpose, has a knock-on effect. We are put on the planet with a purpose, not for ourselves, or even necessarily just God on us. It's actually God using us as vessels, as tools in His hand to fulfill purpose, to reach and touch and impact other people's lives, whether it's just in our family, in our workplace, in our communities, in our nation, or even internationally, in whatever way. We are here, put on this earth by God to fulfill a purpose that makes a difference in some way to other people. And so that in itself is should be a motivating factor and could be a motivating factor. So for today, for example, it's been a long time, but I was asked to go and speak, to lecture for an hour to head teachers and deputy head teachers at Coventry University on diversity. Now, I only got this job about 2 months ago, and I certainly don't necessarily feel like I am an expert in diversity as yet. So I was like, oh my goodness, having palpitations, thinking, what am I going to do? Is it going to be of the standard of an MBA student? Because these are head teachers on an MBA course. But this morning, I just give things to God. Yeah, I just talk to Him like how I talk to you. I can't say that I am one of these people who sits down in devotional times and stuff like that. I talk to God when I'm in my bed at night. I get up in the morning, I say, thank you, Father, but I just get on with it. And that's probably all I might say to Him in the morning. But throughout the day, I am saying things to Him. So today, when I was getting ready for this, and throughout the process of preparing my slides and my talk as well, I was talking to Him, because I'm feeling that sense of purpose so so acutely with this role, because really what I wanted to do was leave the NHS and go back to Trinidad, but God found here. So I'm thinking, okay, clearly there's something you got for me here to do still, right? So I'm just going to let you get on with it, and I will just comply and just do what it is you want me to do. I'll just follow your lead. I mean, I call God you know, like how singers have a manager or whatever. He's my manager, right?
He's
So,
your
you know,
manager.
he makes my bookings, he makes my, you know what I mean? Because there are things that I don't even reach out to ask for these opportunities, but people then contact me and I recognize, well, you know, it must be my manager who's put me on that person's heart to call me to ask me to do this.
Listen,
So
Rosie, hold on,
up.
Michelle. Rosie's helped you out, and she said that he's your agent. Yeah,
he's my agent. He's my agent, right? My everything, my booking agent, everything.
Yeah.
So when he calls me, when somebody calls me, and I know it's him, and I just step up to the plate. But sometimes it is intimidating because here I am talking to MBA head teachers and deputy teachers on a subject that I wouldn't say that I was overly expert at. So throughout the process, I was asking him, you know, God, what is it you want me to say? Because you know who's going to be on that call and where they need to be touched and how they need to be touched in their hearts to change attitudes towards diversity and inclusion. So I just need you to show me how to put together this talk, how to put together this presentation, what to say, what to do, and stuff like that. So I ask him that all the time, and I just go get on and do it. I research it, I pull stuff and learn stuff and put things together. So this morning when I got up again, it was sort of like, oh, why did I say yes to that? But then next thing you know what, I was just at peace and I thought, you know what, the God who called you has called you to his purpose. He has equipped you, he's enabled you, he's given you the talent, the gift of communication, and he knows why he wants you to come and speak to this particular group of people today. So I literally said, you know what, God, I give it to you. This is your thing, this is your show. I'm just gonna show up and I'm giving it to you. And it just went really well. It went really well. I was expecting a lot of sort of, I wouldn't say hostility, but some tension and some whatever, because I was speaking to head teachers from across the country. And you just don't know how people are going to react, especially in the climate that we have now when you're talking about equality and diversity. But in fact, their hearts were open, they were open. And I was asked whether I could come and do some training in one of the schools, you know, so that's the beauty of, I think, connecting with God's purpose for you and kind of surrendering yourself to it. And please don't think I'm some super holy, super spiritual person. That's been learned through hard experience. You know, what I'm saying to you tonight has been learned through hard experience, through resisting God, but him disciplining me, through trying to go my own way, but actually hitting a brick wall. Through him, you know, David talked about he hedges me in behind and before, and he sets his hand upon me. So feeling confined by God in terms of, I want to do this, but I can't do it because you've just put your heads around me and I can't get in to do what I want to do. So I've had to learn obedience through adversity, a lot of adversity, in fact. And but I'm at that place now where I just feel that, okay, especially with this new job that I've gotten and how it all came to be, I recognize God's hand very much in it. So I've surrendered my will and visit the Caribbean beach and not think about the world at all. That's my grand ambition. It's just to be in Trinidad and not think about England or the rest of the world. He's got something for me to do here, but I am at peace and I'm feeling joyful because I'm thinking, wow, God really, he must really love me. He must really know my address, because to have done what he's done for me to get this job shows me that he is totally switched on to me being here and has something for me to do. And that gives me a lot of joy. And it also gives me a lot of boldness as well. Because again, for equalities, I never wanted to work in equalities, never. I actually feel that, especially as Black people, we should stop always being the brand for equality and for racism. We need to start more and more setting up our own systems, our own financial and economic systems, our own education systems, our own things, you know, rather than our own media. That's the other thing I have a big thing about. So that we tell our own stories in the right way, in the right context, and shine and put ourselves out there in the right way as well, as opposed to how the media does it. So that's always been my thing. Black people need to stop talking about equality, work on their families, raise their children up to be successful citizens and individuals, independent people, look at long-term intergenerational wealth creation, look at developing media outlets, look at developing businesses, and support our own businesses. That was my line, and I still believe that. So for God to now ask me to champion equality as a role was a lot for me to swallow. But I feel that, especially after today, that I am able to, I think he's just anointing me to just win hearts really as far as possible around this equality agenda and make things better for people in organizations who might be experiencing hardships and discrimination and things like that, by coming and speaking into that environment and holding people to account. And because, again, this is all God, I have that boldness to actually speak very candidly about racism and so on. So, you know, even today, one of the teachers asked me what would I do? This wasn't about race, this was about neurodiversity. How would you go about helping a staff member who you think is neurodiverse to perhaps get an assessment or a diagnosis or something? So, you know, I just kind of basically said, look, as a line manager, you need to be a safe haven for your team members. Are you the kind of person that your team feels safe to approach and raise their concerns about their work or their experiences of being bullied or harassed in the workplace based on their ethnicity or their disability or whatever? The buck stops with you. You want to be a manager, you want to lead people. Are you the type of person who will care and have a duty of care that you would then work out with your employees? Where are you safe enough for them to feel they can come to you and share things without having some repercussion, some punitive action taken against them as a result? What sort of person are you? So, you know, I'm putting those phrases out there very boldly, very clearly, because I'm thinking, hey, what are you going to do? Fire me? I don't even want the job. You know, so maybe that's what God is doing, you know. And my friends who are really close, who've seen the journey and the difficulty of it all, they keep telling me that as well. I think God definitely has a purpose for you in this. So I forget the question you even asked me, Angela. I'm so sorry.
You know, as I said, the thing is, what you know, you said so many nuggets there, and people have been writing in the chat about knowing your purpose. You know, it's here knowing when you know your Lord speaks, and you need to, you know, you listen and hearing without fear, because you know it does take a certain amount of boldness. Yeah. You know. And it has to be boldness in the right way, because I totally agree with you. And I totally agree with Rosie, what you're saying. God's anointing will make room for you. It's, you know, when you know that you have a purpose and it's a God-given purpose, and he places you in these places. Do you think it's by chance that you're not sitting on the beach in Trinidad, but you are here with us today? It's because it's not by chance. It's because people need to hear what you've got to say. You know, yes, it's tough. It's not easy. Sometimes we're put in situations that we don't even know how we're going to get out of. And I can see that my internet is unstable. So if I have stopped, then please forgive me. But, and I hope you can still hear me. If you can still hear me, can someone nod or something? Okay.
Because I can hear you.
Oh, good. That's fine. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I stopped just in case. But yeah, we're sometimes we not sometimes, we definitely have a purpose. And we are placed in situations, especially us, what with the experience that we have, we are placed in situations where we can influence. And there's many of us, many of you on this line here, on this platform. Do you think that you are here by chance? You're not. You all have a purpose, and you are all women of influence. You can influence positively. And I think that's the important thing. When God has a purpose for you, it isn't, it's not for you to do anything negatively. You are to positively impact your environment. And that is so, so important. So whatever tools he has given you to do, Michelle, I like the fact that you are using them to his glory. It's not about you. It's not about making a name for yourself.
No.
People get it twisted sometimes and think that, they think that you're on a platform like this and they think you want to make a name for yourself. It's not about that. It is about us, realizing that we're in this thing together.
Yes.
And we need each other.
Yeah.
And we, as I said, I must admit, it was my cousin, and I keep saying it, my cousin, Dr. Amanda Brown Bennett, who made me find my voice in a time where, I was in deep grief, distress, in the middle of a pandemic, lost my mom, and felt that I silenced, or could I not speak? But that's why sometimes it takes God to place people strategically in your life to help you and to give you that voice to speak. And to use our skills and abilities to help others. Don't keep it to yourself. What point is it in having a purpose, a God-given purpose, and keeping it to yourself? That doesn't affect or impact anyone. So what you have done with all of your skills and God-given abilities has, when I think of all the different areas that we have even come into contact, I remember that I came to your office once because we were doing young mental health.
Yeah.
Do you remember? We were doing a mental health in young people. Yes. We had a group of, do you remember the youngest who was coming? And this is what I'm saying, the impact of teaching a child.
It matters. It really matters, especially to I do remember it very well. It matters hugely, especially for our young people. They need to see this modeled. They need to see their elders caring for them, going the extra mile to show them the concern, to come to an event like that and talk about the issues that affect them. So yeah, definitely. As we grow in our confidence and in our calling and in our purpose, we are role models, and we need to think about the ones coming up behind us and help them and inspire them and motivate them to follow suit, as opposed to repressing and suppressing and pushing them back down. And I think the other thing is, so you said it twice really in the introduction and then just now, I feel, so I've sit on so many forums, and when I'm in a very sort of non-Black forum, I never hear individuals having to say the things you have said about, I'm not trying to make a name for myself, I'm not trying to do this or do that. So the question is, why is it in a Black audience that we feel the need to justify doing good? Why is it in a Black audience we feel the need to justify being our best selves, utilizing our talents, our gifts and abilities excellently? Why are we apologizing for that? I don't hear others apologizing for it. So, as a community, we need to think about how we treat each other, how we uphold and lift up one another, instead of attacking and criticizing and trying to undermine or trying to point a finger that who does she think she is, and all that kind of ridiculous stuff. The other wonderful thing that I've learned since turning 50, I'm now 52, is, to really just not give a toss what other people think. For too long, that has kept me back, has kept me bound, has kept me feeling bad about myself, has kept me in areas of low self-esteem. The minute I've stopped thinking about what other people think. As long as I know I'm doing the best that I can do in a respectful way, I do not give a flying fig if you think I'm this or I am that. That is your issue. Yeah. So I'm not apologizing for the gifts and the talents that God gave me. I'm not apologizing for how well I have developed them over the years, because actually they were developed through pain. They were developed through fire. So why am I apologizing now when God has done his refining work and wants to put you in a place where he wants to show you off almost again for his glory? Yeah. So I'm not apologizing.
No.
Don't apologize. Don't say I'm not trying to make a name for myself. I'm not trying to do this or that. Que sera, sera. If somebody is thinking like that, then they need to grow. They need to grow. They need to get over their own low self-esteem and low self-worth, because actually the people who are flying are not thinking about you trying to make a name for yourself.
Oh, no,
they are understanding what you're doing because they're doing it, right?
Yeah.
So it's the people who are not flying are the ones who will be thinking, who does she think she is? When actually, just pick up a book, read a book, and get a life.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What I want to do is I want to bring up some pictures, and I want you to kind of talk us through the pictures, because yeah, you know, people think that, you know, yeah, we arrive here. We don't just arrive.
No,
we have a journey.
In the book it says repeatedly, people who do great exploits make exploits look easy.
Yeah.
And that's because you see this end game. You didn't see that actually I really struggled to get out of bed at 6:30 this morning.
Yeah.
That, you know, I have been burning the midnight oil. I'm on annual leave. I've been on leave since last week, but I have gone into the office 3 days last week. I went on Monday and I went today, preparing for this 1 hour presentation. So when I delivered that presentation today, it was superbly delivered. If somebody wants to say, who does she think she is? I can't be bothered with that, because they didn't see the 5 days of annual leave I've sacrificed.
No, it's true.
To actually deliver something at that level. Because I'm going there to deliver it, to change hearts and minds, but also, and in order to do that, you need to be credible. You need to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I'm also going with a view that I actually want those head teachers to employ me to come and do training in their schools. So people who do exploits make exploits look easy. That hour I delivered that lecture, it probably looked easy for me to do.
Yeah.
But nobody sees the work that's done behind the scenes.
No.
And even the Bible talks about that. The unseen realm is where things are completed, and then they manifest in the natural realm. That unseen realm is the midnight oil. And that's what I mean when I'm not the super spiritual thing. Yes, I know there's a spiritual world that's unseen, but there's an unseen realm, i.e. me in my working till 1 o'clock in the morning, doing something. You know, me choosing to, after I did what I did, I met a friend for lunch, and then I came home and I went into my bed thinking, oh my goodness, instead of just binging on Netflix for the rest of the night, I now have to get up, get dressed again to do this interview.
That's right.
That's what I mean. These things take sacrifice.
Of course.
And so you definitely do not have to explain yourself to anybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. So we're going to be looking at these pictures. So, okay, tell me about this picture.
Yes, so I love this photo so much. That's me as a little girl. It's always like, oh my goodness, I was that small, incredible. And I must have been about 6 or so. And that's my granddad, who I love so much. He died over 40 years ago, but I still feel such a potent love for him. And that's my grandma. And that's their house in Trinidad, where I grew up with them until I was 9 when my grandfather died. And my grandfather was this kind of figure, a kind of towering figure in the community, well respected. He did many exploits in his time, definitely. And so his standard still is upheld in the family, upheld by his children, my mom, aunts and uncles, and then our generation as well have grown up to to always reach for the best, to always reach for achievement, to always express your best self. So it kind of started with this guy that I've got my arm around sitting on. And that's why I thought I wanted to share that. James Howard. And in fact, the book is dedicated to him, James Howard. This photo is my very first fundraising event under the Women 101 banner. And Women 101 International Mission is a charitable piece of work that I started up as part of the radio program. I grew up in nursing, and women's health was my specialism. And so I always have this thing about women's well-being, their social well-being, their economic well-being, and all the rest of it. So that's always been a driver with the work that I do. This group of ladies actually paid, I think back then I charged them 45 quid or something one Christmas to come and have Christmas dinner. And all the proceeds went to a women's charity called the Treasures Foundation, which is here in East London. And it's been started by a woman called Mandy Ogonacom. Now, she was one of the women I interviewed on Women 101, and I was gobsmacked. I have never heard a story so terrible in my life. From the age of 3, she was sexually trafficked by her own mother.
Wow. Wow.
Grew up in prostitution. Her mom was a prostitute. Her grandmother was a prostitute. Generational cursing going on there. Grew up from the age of 3. She said she had 4 clients, and in her mother's house, being sold by her own mother. Obviously, she then became a drug addict and was in and out of Holloway prison. But at one point in the prison, again, prison ministry, met Christ, radically changed. She said she was instantly delivered from her crack cocaine habit, instantly delivered. And now one of the things that she wanted to do was to create a situation for women coming out of Holloway or coming out of prison, because now she gets referrals from women's prisons across the country, to house women. So it's an in-between, what's it called, like a halfway home. So that they don't have to go back into the situation that brought them to prison in the first place. Because she said that's why she was in and out of prison all the time, because as soon as you come out of the prison, you just go back to the pimp because you got nowhere to live, you got nowhere to stay. She was homeless and all the rest of it. So what she does is provides a home, rooms for these women, and then it's a rehabilitation process, and then back into work, and then supporting them into their own accommodation and releasing them to live their lives. So I was just so broken by Mandy's story, because as I said, I've never, you hear about these things, but to actually meet somebody that happened to, and then to see the grace of God just change. If you meet Mandy, you just see the Spirit of God all over her. And so she says that her addiction has swapped from crack cocaine to the Holy Spirit. She's now addicted to the Holy Spirit. So anyway, I just felt I wanted to do that for this charity. So we raised those funds. And then the other venture from Women 101 is when I went to Gambia. And I went on holiday, really. It was my 50th birthday. It was my treat to myself. And I'd never been to Africa before. I was so excited. Went to Gambia as part of a women's retreat and had a fantastic time. This was on my actual birthday, the 20th of February, 2 years ago. And we went to Kunta Kinte Island, and then coming back through the village on that coast, we stopped outside what they say is the house of the actual Kunta Kinte, right? I mean, I don't know how true that is or not. I have no idea. It might just be a tourist attraction thing. But by then I was too hot and bothered, because it really was quite hot. So I didn't come out from under the van. And I thought, I don't need to go inside that hut to see what it's like. So I was waiting in the van, and then this woman came, and she just, without anything, she just plunked her baby in my lap. So I just took the baby thinking, okay, well, I'll sit here with the baby, because actually it's nice and cool here. And he was so cute. And I just connected with him. He's such a little darling. He's only 3 months, and I don't know, he's sitting up so strong for 3 months. His name was Solomon, of all things. So of course, so that was a nice experience. And then, it was towards the end of my journey, and then having to holding Solomon. All along I've been seeing all these children just out and about, and you just think what to do for them. I mean, they're happy. They're children. They're not thinking of themselves as poor or deprived or anything. They're just kids playing, you know. But you see the state and you just think, wow, 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 what can be done? And then we went to the school, St. Martin's School, with those children there. So that's the other project that we worked on. We did a 5K walk, organized that here. And then my aunt got excited about it. So she organized her friends and did a 5K in Toronto as well. And we raised, at that stage, just over £1,500 just with us ladies here in the UK and in Canada, which we then sent back to St. Martin's School and also to the football club in Khartoum. And also, I don't know if we've got the photos of the nurse and the clinic, but we also sent some money to that clinic. This is a picture of, this happened 2 Mondays ago. That's actually Sean Wallace. I don't know if you know Sean Wallace.
Oh yeah, I've met him.
Oh, so I didn't know him either. So I never heard of him. I don't watch ITV. He's on this show, game show called Chase.
That's right, the Chase.
And so, in fact, for work, Northwest London, they asked me, "Oh, Michelle, since you're near to Brent, would you mind going and interviewing Sean Wallace? He's coming for his vaccine, and we want to, you know, promote the vaccine amongst Black and minority ethnic people, and he's willing to do it." So I said, "Okay, fine, I'll go along." And you know, I thank God so much for that. I told my sisters and friends, you know, wow, I was able to go in there. I said to him, "Look, I'm the one woman show here. I am the camera crew, I am the director, I am the interviewer, I am everything." And I just used my iPhone. And I really could not have done that without the experience I've had along the way that God brought me through radio, through all the stuff I do on my social media as well, right? So I just did it and it went really well. And of course, I then thought I would take him a book as my present to him because I know he goes and speaks to people in school. So I brought 2 books and I gave him one for himself. And I said, give the other one to a young person that whoever he feels to give it to. So he was very happy to pose with my book. So that's my guy there posing with my book, having got his vaccine. So that's what that photo is about. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to ask a personal question, and I hope you don't mind answering. Your status at the moment?
In terms of marital status?
Yes.
I'm single and unattached.
I'm proud.
And very proud. Very comfortable. Very comfortable. Yeah.
And I think that is important in this day and age because, you know, there are a lot of women who are in that situation.
Yeah.
And have difficulty with it. As a woman yourself who has had your journey, you're 52, you're single, busy. Many would say probably too busy for a husband. How do you feel being 52, being single?
I feel I am the most blessed woman in the world. I really do. So, you know, my mom is an issue for her, but I always say to her that, well, number one, I've got my freedom. I come and go as I want. When I want to go on holiday, I go on holiday. When I don't want to cook, I don't cook. When I want to just stay in my bed, I stay in my bed. Free, footloose and fancy free. And I love that very much. I say to my mom, if there's a man to come into my life and I'm not looking for one, I might even go so far as to say, and I apologize if it's offensive, but that I think they're more hassle than they're worth. And in the best way I can say that, really. I just find, you know, when I hear stories about men from my friends, from my relatives, it's always problematic. The woman is always in a state. And I think to myself, you haven't yet figured out that he needs you more than you need him. So for me, I think if you want to be married, good for you. Go for it. I will be there, celebrate with you. But for me, I am quite happy, really very happy as a person. And I think it's because of that freedom that I've got to do stuff like this, to write when I want to write, to not have to worry about what somebody else might want or be thinking or whatever the case is, just be released. And the thing is, So my view on this is not the view that people should take. Yeah, this is just my personal view, right? You know, I always, you know, you look back, was Jesus married? No. You know, and that's not to be super spiritual about it. I'm just saying that who says you have to be married? I know you want kids. Yeah. So in these conversations, you say, "Well, I want children." Da, 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 da. Well, yeah, I could understand that, but then get married. But understand that it's not an easy thing. And also, don't then come crying to me about how horrible he's treating you or how neglectful he is. Men need to do a lot of growing. And I'm generalizing. So apologies to any men in the audience. I'm not speaking about you directly. But in my observation, when I look across the patch, and I'm sure you've got a husband, you're probably quite happy in your marriage. And there are some good men out there, but it seems to me they're few and far between. And I think that as women, I mean, I'm doing a lot with my life, not because I'm trying to do a lot with my life, but that's because I enjoy it. You know, I am really enjoying my life. What I'm doing here is giving me such joy and pleasure.
Okay.
What I did earlier today is giving me such joy and pleasure. I'm looking forward to the publication of my next book in May coming out called Bouncing Back. That gives me pleasure. If a man comes in now, I must not lose that pleasure and swap it for pain and heartache and wondering where he is and is he with another woman and why doesn't he do more? Why doesn't he help more? Why hasn't he contributed? I'm not swapping my joy for that. So that's what
we had a question. Someone said, how do you avoid the social judgments? Or how do you deal with the social judgments?
Well, I only feel that when I'm with my mom. You know, no holds barred with mom. So over here, I don't really, as I said, when I say I don't really put a lot of stock in what others think, I actually mean that. I wasn't saying that as something to say to be entertaining. I process some of this stuff and I discard the stuff that actually isn't helpful, right? And so I don't really get any sense of, if you ask me, the hassle might be that you go to church and sometimes there's some guy who's following you around and blah, 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 and trying to chat to you, talk to you and get you into some relationship. And I actually find that a hassle. I think if I say very sweetly and nicely, oh, I'm very flattered, but no, I don't want to, I'm good, you should take it as that and go. Don't come a second time and try again, right? That happens at work. It happens in other places. And I just think, I don't want this harassment. I actually don't. Yeah.
Right. There's two more questions for you.
Yeah.
There's two. The first one was from a younger member of our audience, and it was, did you ever have a desire to get married, and did that change over time? Did you have a desire when you were younger and it changed over time, or?
No. So before I came to the Lord, I had a partner. And we lived together for 4 years. And actually, it was a really fantastic relationship. It only changed because I got born again.
Okay.
Right? That's the reason I walked out of that relationship. And it still took a year. We were sleeping separately for that year when I became born again. He waited and he was there for me and everything. And he thought I was just going to come back. But Jesus had really taken hold of me. And every now and again, I reflect on that and think, well, I've given that up. So, you know, but to say wanting to be married, and maybe that's the other thing, that's probably the other reason, is because, you know, even then I didn't want to be married. I was just always scared to be married. I always felt like it was some kind of trap or some kind of such a final permanent thing that if you are unhappy in it, then that's it, you know what I mean? So I've never had any strong burning desire to be married. That's the answer. And less so now, because there's so many things I will have to change in my life if I got married, that I just don't see what that's going to bring to my life. Yeah.
But you filled your life with happiness.
I have, and I've had to do it intentionally, because I don't know if I told you, but 15 years ago I was diagnosed with depression.
No, you didn't tell me that.
So that's written in my next book, is that journey of depression and coming out of it. And so I have actively had to learn how to create joy and happiness in my life, right? And that's something I have to do on a daily basis. So to manage that. And I do it successfully and skillfully. So again, I don't want anything to come into my life that's going to be problematic and upset that balance of joy and peace and well-being that I'm enjoying right now. Because I think I would just go back into some depressed state and just really struggle to come out of that black hole again. And I never want to revisit that place. So the thing is, I asked God a few years ago, I always ask God for friends, and he always gives me a friend. Like I say to him, I want a girlfriend because, you know, I want somebody who I can call up spontaneously, go to the cinema, blah, blah, blah. God gave me that person. There are other examples of when that happened, but sadly, there are 3 people in particular I'm thinking of that God answered prayers with, but they all migrated. And one of them moved to Milton Keynes. The other 2 went to America. So what I did was I asked God about 2 or so years ago for male friends this time, and men who I could go out and have dinner with or meet up for a coffee with or whatever, because there was just only women in my life. And I felt, well, let me, you know, get some men in here. And in fact, he gave me 2 non-Christians. 2 men came really close into my life. One of them is Lyndon Wissart, right? One of them you don't know. And it's been platonic. It's been without problem. You have a conversation straight up. I'm not looking for any relationship beyond friendship. Both of you agree that in a conversation, this is exactly how it went. And tell them that story. You know, I know you say you don't think there's a God, but God gave me you as my friend. And so straight away, they already know that there's some boundaries in place. And never have they ever crossed those boundaries, made me feel uncomfortable or sexually harassed or anything like that. They just bring nice companionship into my life. A phone call a couple times a week. With COVID, not much going on, but before COVID, I'd meet Lyndon in St. George's or somewhere else for a quick drink or a quick dinner, and then we part ways and we go our way. You know, so that has been nice. I've got male friends in my life. But the thought of anything more than that just makes me feel almost suffocated thinking about it.
One question that has come through from Elaine, she's asking what happens about the legacy of passing down that legacy.
Well, the legacy is everybody's life that I have touched. People walk away from me having been touched in some way by me. And my books are my legacy, my speaking is my legacy, the nuggets that I share is my legacy, how somebody changed something in their life because of something I said or did, that's my legacy. I was not created just to have 2, 3, 4 children, and that's my legacy. My legacy is humanity, everybody I come into contact with and deposit something in. That's my legacy.
You spoke about because I didn't know about the fact that you had been diagnosed with depression, and that was probably just one of the challenges that you've had in your life.
It was really, really hard, really hard, really hard.
How did you get out of it? How did you pull yourself? Because to be diagnosed with depression, we know, being in the health, the health sector, what that gives. How did you? How did you get out of it?
It's exhausting just even thinking about that question. But I went into denial initially, just rejected it straight away because I was very much in church and I am born again. How could I be depressed and all this stuff? And just thinking of myself as a professional woman, it just didn't fit into who I thought I was. This idea of media. So I struggled for 18 months, really hard to get up and get out of bed, to go to work. There was a lot of absenteeism from work as well, just in a daze, in a haze, in a fog, demotivated. For the first 6 months, it was a lot of sadness, the sad feelings that come with depression. But after that, it was just a kind of foggy, like walking through the dark all the time. And eventually, and funnily enough, that was when I wrote, no, I'm getting my story, yeah. So after the first time I was told, I went through a very long time of denial. And then when I think I got to the point where I couldn't cope anymore, I saw my GP again. And he then prescribed Prozac for me. And I took that for 6 months and it worked, but then it stopped working. So I went back again. There was a break and then I went back again when I felt I couldn't cope anymore. And this time it was combining an antidepressant with CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, through IAP services, increasing access to psychological therapy services. And actually it was those CBT classes that really helped me. Just the cycle that they teach you about, you know, how you're feeling and then how you're thinking and how to change your thinking and all that to then change how you feel. That really helped. So that is going back about maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it didn't go away overnight, but I had that to hold on to and build on. And just working on it every day, just working on pushing myself. And that's why I'm this busy as well, because I find that having set myself different goals to achieve, it pulled me, it dragged me out of that depression over time. It took a long time. Now, you know, sometimes I don't think it's in, I think it is in for me at the moment, and it has been now for us for several years, is like depression is like I'm in a field, my life is a field, but depression is really like a tree well far in the distance. So I can see it, it's there. It hasn't gone away, it's not disappeared. But I know when I am moving closer to that tree, and I know what to do to pull myself away from it, if that makes sense. I know what to do through the cognitive behavior therapy techniques and also setting goals. So like when COVID started last year, I was in a slump because I had just come back from Trinidad as well into COVID and just complete chaos with this COVID business. I remember feeling myself slipping towards that depression place again. And what I just had an inspiration. I thought, I'm going to raise some funds for Gambia. And I just put that out, and I created a flyer, put that on social media, and it was a small goal of 300 quid. Contributed to that. Before the end of the day, it had got to 100 pounds. The next day we had raised to 300. And then I saw people still giving and giving and giving. So I left the GoFundMe open for a week, and we raised over 500 pounds. Now that whole week of getting calls and text messages and seeing the money go up and up really blew me out of any depressed feelings with joy and excitement and exhilaration, and also serving other people. So doing something with somebody else also makes you feel really good. So all of that was an act of service, and then I could see that money coming in, and I was really excited. And the slump just went away. The depressed feelings went away, and I've been fine. You know, so I use all sorts of techniques like that to just make sure that I am in a happy place, in a happy space. So I'm very protective of that, because when I was in the worst of it, it's hard to describe how horrible it is, how utterly horrible it is. Yeah.
Thank
you. Hopelessness, the dryness of soul, it's just indescribable how awful that feeling is. And it's frightening as well, because as a single woman here, no one to depend on, I had to do it all. I had to make sure I was still able to work and have a job and earn an income, and so struggle on every side. And in fact, up to this day, I've never told my mother that I had a degree. Yeah,
Wow.
you know, it was just so difficult, and I didn't want her to worry. And but now everybody's going to know. It's in bouncing back, and that's coming out. And yeah, it's about letting people know that it's possible. It's hard work, but it's possible.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of people have been on about your book, really, and about the fact that they have had a desire to write.
Yes.
And the reality is, so have I. I've had a desire to write, but it's for whatever reason it hasn't happened. But for those people who are on the platform who want to write, and whether it be to tell their story or to express themselves in the way that you have in the book, because it's funny when yes, I have read the book, and there are so many elements of it that I can relate to in my life, in my journey. What kind of tips or advice would you have for anybody who is on the platform who maybe have been thinking about it for a long time? Because the thing is, let me tell you something, our stories are amazing, amazing. And even just to listen to, and when somebody said about the analogy of the field and that tree that you can see in the distance. When you visualize it and you think, I know what you're talking about. And my analogy may be different. My storm, and and it may not be depression for me, but it may be something else. It's almost as if that book that you've written, that I've read, it's almost as if I've shared part of that journey with you. Didn't know that you'd have depression, but so it would be really interesting for you to kind of say, or tell people, for those who feel that because this thing about we can't, I can't do that, and I can't do that. You have truly shown this evening that you can do great exploits.
You can do great exploits. Exploits aren't easy, but you can do them. Yeah, and that's the message. We want to tell you that. We don't want to say that it's easy, because if you think it's easy and then you have some difficulty, you think, well, it's not for me, it's not what God wants. Well, it's not easy, and that God knows it's not easy. He's called you to stretch you and to mine in you, pull out of you the treasure that's buried in there.
Yeah.
So, even the depression thing has given me such insights and about life and wisdom and myself, and a huge level of compassion and sensitivity to other people, because I never want anybody to feel how I have felt in the past with that thing. And so I'm really sort of mindful of treating people kindly and gently, because you just do not know where people are. You just don't know.
No, you just don't know.
Yeah.
You're totally.
And you don't want to hurt people unnecessarily as well. So in terms of writing and so on, I do coach. And in fact, I had a writing client recently. She wants to tell her story about her child's diagnosis as learning difference, neurodiversity. And we met for over 3 months, me coaching her. You can do it that way. But in general terms, number one, it's about clarity, knowing generally what you want to write about. Ideally, write about what you know. So I spent some time talking about how immersed I was in listening to motivational speakers and reading books by self-help gurus. And so writing this book was pretty easy for me after years of listening to that stuff. I just churned out what was deposited inside of me. So write what you know, because then that makes it a bit easier. Don't try to, if you're not, a physicist, don't write about traveling to the moon on a spaceship, because that will just, put you off. Definitely, you won't finish. So write about what you know and what you're passionate and interested in, because writing is a slog, and you've got to be really switched on to what you're doing to continue to do it. So write what you like, what's interesting to you. and what you know as a starter. And then you want to be clear, and then there's a process around planning the book and the chapters and things like that. But maybe I should run a webinar on that, because more and more people are asking me that question.
That would be
maybe
good.
We'll just do a webinar on that. Yeah.
You see, I'm giving you more. You're getting more work even. Annette is asking, where did you find your publisher?
Yeah. So again, asking people who had written books where they published, and somebody said to me, Author House. So I went on the Author House website. So again, this is self-publishing. So it's a big Christian publisher, but it's through self-publishing. And they're based in America, but I think they're one of the leading ones. So you can go online and see what they offer you and get in touch with them. And I found the support throughout the preparation of the manuscript and so on was good with Author House. My second book, though, I've gone local with Conscious Dreams Publishing. So I don't know whether you know Daniela Blechner. She is a mixed race woman who's through her publishing company published 80 books really, and I thought, oh, let me go and work with her, because I was just so impressed with what she was able to create. So yeah, that's the answer. It's Author House. Just Google it and go online there. There are a number of other Christian type self-publishing houses as well, and you just decide which one you feel best, or ask other people as well who've written books who they used.
Yeah, people are asking for a webinar.
Okay.
So we'll have to make sure that happens. And for those of you who, I know that there are some people who are online and are asking, is this being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded. So if you weren't here at the beginning, you will be able to watch the whole thing. It definitely will be on my website, and we will make sure that you get the details. And also, before the end, I'll ask Michelle to give you her details as well. So if you want to look at her website and see what's going on, then that would be good. And Annette is asking, sorry, I may have missed it, but do you have a charity? Okay, well.
Yes, I do, but it's informal, so it's not a registered charity per se. It's called Women 101 International Mission, but I do these small fundraising exercises when there's a specific need or whatever. And Rafa have given us a gift, in fact, to that. So thank you very much for that, Angela.
No problem.
But it goes to, at the moment, it's Gambia, and it's either, so the last time we raised that 500 plus, it was literally, we sent it there, and it was used to buy rice for 80 families during the COVID lockdown, because it's a very tourist driven economy as well. So obviously with the borders shut and planes and flights not going in, a lot of people were in economic straits there. So they bought rice for 80 families, and they also bought PPE equipment for teachers and schools and students, at St. Mary's School in Khartoum. So I'm in touch with the head teacher there, Nicholas Datta, and Amadou Jame, who is the guy with the football academy, and the young children there. That's where the rice went to their families. But you know, the thing is, £1 is like 54 dalasi. Wow. So like literally, you send £500-600 there, and you're looking at something like, 60-something thousand dalasi. Mm-hmm. And so that is a lot of money. So they were able to do quite a lot with it.
Yeah. Okay, as we're coming down, but we can't go away without talking about the NHS challenges. Mm-hmm. You working or have worked certainly in the NHS for some time. Yeah. We're hearing so much about inequality in health inequality. For a number of reasons. This very week, we've heard about the Barchester Group and talking about no vaccine, no job, pretty much. Right. What are your thoughts on the current situation around inequality and in health specifically? Let's start with that one.
Yeah. So things are pretty challenging in the NHS around equalities and racial justice. But there's a lot of work that's being done to try to address that. So, for example, we know that in London, the NHS workforce is something like 45% ethnic minority, which reflects London's diversity. However, when you look more closely, so you might think, well, that's not bad, that's really good, but that's just numbers. If you look more closely at that, you'll find that of that 45%, the majority of them are at lower grades in the NHS. So there are barriers in the system to people progressing to senior roles in the NHS, not just in London, but across the board. And there has been a lot of debate and discussion and all sorts of things going on around that. That culminated in a standard called the Workforce Race Equality Standard, which is now adopted in the NHS. And basically, this standard has 9 indicators to look at things like bullying and harassment, access to non-mandatory training, and a range of indicators to measure how well or not the organizations are doing in terms of race equality. So that data is being collected all the time. The Workforce Race Equality Standard came into being about 3 years or so ago. They haven't seen a massive shift in the outcomes of those indicators, but they have reported that there has been a change in terms of board level appointments that are ethnic minorities. So again, some of the baseline data was showing that of the 52 or 50 something trusts in the country, only 3 of them had a chief exec that was an ethnic minority background. Imagine that, 3. But since then, I think there's probably about 7 of them now that have a Black or Asian CEO, right? So there's some progress, but it's slow and it's painstaking, and you have to continue campaigning and hammering on about it. What I have found since the George Floyd thing last year and the Black Lives Matter movement is that corporately, they're talking more about diversity, right? And but again, it's whether that is window dressing or not. So these are the issues I even raised today in that lecture. Is it just window dressing, something you write up in a policy, you put on your website, but actually your staff are experiencing a lot of discrimination and harassment based on their protected characteristics and the like. So we just have to continue those discussions, finding ways to hold organizations to account. There's a lot of bullying in the NHS. Both white and Black staff report bullying, but Black staff have a greater proportion of bullying. The other thing is they are more likely to be referred to disciplinary processes or referred to the NMC, the Nursing and Midwifery Council, or the General Medical Council for misconduct, but find that their cases are rejected or overturned with no case to answer. So sometimes it's done in a punitive way. We will just refer you to the GMC, but actually the GMC, when they scrutinize the evidence, there is no case to answer. So that is also being tackled as well, to look at how we can hold organizations who do that sort of thing accountable for it and have to explain themselves as to why they are doing that, to protect the staff a bit more. So it's tricky and dicey. It's not ideal. It's difficult. It causes a lot of hurt and mental health issues amongst our BME staff. Yeah. So I do a lot of talk. So recently I was commissioned by Unison as well to work with them, Black members at UCLH. So I did a series of workshops with them just around professional development, interview skills, CV writing, and also motivational type speaking as well, to help them to, number one, to boost them, but also to get them thinking about their careers and how they can move forward with them, really. So that's the overview.
We are definitely over time, so we're going to finish now. But I really want to thank you, and people have said it here. Um, thank you for your honesty, thank you for your openness, thank you for letting us in, really, and for telling your story, and for not being silent, and for speaking. And because it has, in my view, for me, irrespective of how experienced I am or where I am, you never fail to empower and inspire. And I hope that you have done that. And I'm sure you have done that for the audience. I'm not being funny. For us to hold almost 60 people for an hour and a half, it is it's phenomenal.
I was thinking,
yeah, and I and really, I mean, we've put certainly in the chat how people can get hold of you. The recording of this will be on my website, and of course I'll share it with you as well, Michelle.
Yes,
my website is www.theangelaclark.com. And Michelle, do you want to say how people can get hold of you if they need to?
Yes, so I've put my email address in the chat.
Excellent.
It's intouch@hmichellejohnson.com. So H is for Heather. You're going to ask me what that was. H is for Heather. And so it's hmichellejohnson.com. intouch@hmichellejohnson.com. I've also put my Twitter and Instagram handles in there as well. It's at Ms. Johnson. I can put my website. My website is under development. If you want copies of my book, write to me and I will get your address and put them in the post to you.
Or contact me
If you're on this call tonight, you get a discount. Pardon?
I said they can send it to me as well and I'll pass it on, no problem.
Oh, yes. So that's the other way. Keep doing exploits. Keep doing your exploits. Keep forging ahead. Have a vision. Have a plan. That's the other thing. So vision and plan, not just vision, but plan as well. That you then work out. Okay. So thank you so much, Angela. You're an inspiring person as well. I know your story, and I am always like in awe of this young woman. Like seriously.
Listen, young woman, I'm older than you. You know. I love that.
It's so true. You're absolutely right.
Thank you.
But you've got such a girlish face, you see. Yeah, so and you are a very dynamic leader as well, doing so much with Rafa and with the Beach Society and all that stuff, all these awards that you're getting. Well deserved because of your tireless efforts, really, and always going the extra mile. So Angela is living in East London, Essex, and she comes to Brent. She doesn't have to come to Brent to work, to do stuff. This is not even part of her job. This is the charitable work she's doing, working on children's boards and coming and getting involved with us with the CAMS piece of work and things like that. Imagine that journey, across London. And she does that regularly. So, you as well, you are a force to be reckoned with as well, and inspirational and a great role model for the people around you. I guess as we want to say to you guys, it's not because we have no worries or fears or anxieties. You just have to find ways to get over your fears, your worries, and your anxieties, and get on with it. Yeah,
very true.
So, everybody
having God at the center.
Having God at the center. Rely on Him. Lean on Him. Just put it in His hands. God, it's your fault. I'm here, so you deal with it. He does. So you see, that's my husband. You see, that's how I relate to him. You're asking about that. He's like my husband, and that's how I talk to him.
Yeah.
And and with love, because I'm in awe of him, really. And I think we have a good laugh together. But it's all good. It's all good. Just believe in yourself, because God believes in you. He created you. He called you before the foundations of the world to stand before Him above reproach in love. I mean, if you can just even meditate on the craziness of that, it will just give you the strength to do what He's called you to do, to trust Him because He called you to do it. He's not calling you to fail. He's calling you to do what He's already ordained and set up for you to just walk into. So just walk into it without fear, without apprehension. Just go for it, relying on Him, looking to Him. And it will work out, because He says He works it all out for our good anyway. He got nothing to lose. by just following God's lead in your life and by just surrendering the aspects of your life to Him, and just letting Him sort it out. Make Him your agent, your manager, your husband, yeah, your financer.
Exactly.
God, this is what the bank account is like. I thought you said you were my husband. What are you going to do about that? You know, and he can take it. He's God. He knows our quirks, our idiosyncrasies. So that's the other thing, your authentic self before God. There's nothing about me that is shocking to Him because He sees right through me. So what's the point of trying to hide and make it polish up and make it sound like holy, and I was like, God, here what? This is what is happening here right now. I need you to sort it out.
Yeah.
And you will see how He just steps in and does some amazing things.
Yeah.
So
we've proved Him, haven't we? We've proved Him time and time again.
Yeah.
Time and time again. So thank you, Michelle. I can't thank you enough. God bless you. God keep you. And all of you who are online, who I classify as my friends, I say thank you. Bless you all. Our next Women Lead interview will be next month, when I will have the great pleasure of having Dr. Amanda Bennett Brown. Should I say Brown Bennett? It's the wrong way. So yeah, so I will be looking forward to having Amanda on this platform. And Michelle, you're going to come back. You know, you'll come back, because we're going to have some kind of grand finale and have, you know, all our women on, you know, just telling of what God is continuing to do in our lives. So thank you, everyone. Please look out on my Facebook, my website. I'll make sure that the details are there. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry that it's 60 minutes over. That was never intended, but I got so engrossed in the conversation. But thank you all very, very much. Have a pleasant evening. Continue to pray, continue to trust in God. And those who are not of faith, hold on to God. I'm telling you, I can testify of His goodness and of His grace. So continue to walk in your purpose as God has ordained it. Okay. God bless you. God keep you. Have a lovely night. Have a lovely week, a good weekend. And Michelle, thank you very much. Bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the first Women Lead interview hosted by me as part of the Women Lead Network. My next interview will take place on Thursday, the 29th of April at the normal time of 7:30 p.m. with Dr. Amanda Brown Bennett, a counselling psychologist. Visit my Facebook page at The Angela Clark, or visit my website at www.theangelaclark.co.uk.